This is your sign to have a second baby. Newborns are easy. They are easy, guys. Enjoy that time being sick and having to take care of another human being. It's like being really hungover and then having to go to work. When I was starting to feel like myself a little bit more, I remember just looking at Sage and realizing like, I just need to recharge and be alone. First question people ask you after you have your first is like, when are you having the second? If I did have a third baby, would I just be bedridden? I was not really nervous about birth. I thought, okay, how bad can it be? The hardest thing I've ever done in my life. These are the things I wish I knew before having baby number 2. I want to get into the things that really surprised me about having 2 babies, 2 pregnancies, 2 births, and what that all looked like. Before we do, make sure you are subscribed, click that button, thumbs this video up, and grab a snack or a drink because we're going to get into it. Before I had kids, I was such a go-go, rush around kind of person, and I am still kind of that person, but also having kids have just like made me slow down and be more present. Even if I don't want to be, it's forced me to be. But one thing with having my second is just I've really leaned into those slower, longer days, and honestly, I kind of love it. You realize with your second how quickly, especially that first year, goes by. They grow so much, so many milestones, so much is happening in that first year. You're recovering from birth and you realize how just fleeting that time is. And so this time around, I've really kind of slowed down, soaked up those times, whether it's Oakley crying to go to sleep and he needs me to hold him longer or doing more contact naps. I've been carrying him more in like a baby carrier. And instead of being like, oh, I'm stuck under the baby sleeping and I want to do all this stuff, I'm like, I am stuck under the baby. Once you have a toddler, you're like, this is the good life. Like, it is the relaxing, calming break time. Honestly, this time around, newborn life, so much easier. I don't know why I was complaining about it before. Yes, the sleep deprivation is the hardest part, but like, newborns are easy. They are easy, guys. Enjoy that time. That's the best phase. I don't mean the best phase. That is like the calmest phase. After that, things just get wild. They get fun, they get crazy, but it's busier and more tiring. I will say Oakley was a pretty good newborn sleeper, so if you are struggling, don't take this the wrong way. I get it. It's hard with the sleep. I'm not saying that. In other ways, it's really easy. Like you put them down in one spot and they fall asleep on their own. They just stay there. It's great. Newborn life. Chef's kiss. Being pregnant with your second is so much more different than being pregnant with your first. You have an existing child to take care of regardless how you're feeling. And outside of pregnancy, parenting when you are sick, it's one of the top 3 worst things about parenting. Being sick and having to take care of another human being regardless of how you feel. It's like being really hungover and then having to go to work. That's exactly what it is. Awful. Do not recommend. Parents can't afford to get sick. It's just no bueno. And with my second, I was so nauseous, guys. With Sage, I had food aversions and stuff, but I never actually threw up. Oakley, oh my gosh. Not even the first trimester, the first 25 weeks, I was so sick. I was on the couch. I was throwing up like every single day. TMI. I just have never experienced that level of nausea. It was awful. And the fact that I had a toddler running around to take care of, to feed, to nourish, to all the things, it was probably the hardest thing about being pregnant. Was just, you don't get that downtime. When you're pregnant with your first, if you're tired, you want a snack, you want to sleep, you do it. Like, you are on your own time, but now you are not. And honestly, I think back to that time and I just don't know how I would have done it without Matt. I was growing our baby, but he was taking care of myself and our daughter and keeping the household running. I've also heard from other moms that each pregnancy, some symptoms are harder, like the nausea. I had a little bit the first time and it got really bad this time. So it makes me think if I did have a third baby, would I just be bedridden with nausea? I don't know. Comment down below, what was your experience? Fear of birth. With my first, near the end, everyone likes to ask you, are you scared? Are you worried about birth? What are you feeling? And I honestly was chill. I was no, I'm not scared. I don't know if I was in denial, but I was not really nervous about birth. I thought, okay, how bad can it be? The hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Women do it all the time. I'll go with the flow. I'll see how it is. I'm open to an epidural. I don't really want one, so I'm going to plan for not having one, but I know in the back of my mind that's an option if things get really intense and I can't take it. And I had a really positive birth experience. Intense, but still a positive experience. And even a positive birth experience is very intense, life-changing. It's just a lot. So especially with no epidural. And oddly, I feel like because I had such a good experience the first time around, it made me more nervous for the second time around, because I thought, what if that was just a coincidence? What if it's like goes the complete opposite? And as someone who is a little bit of a control freak, I was just like not prepared for it going any other way. In my mind, I'm like, that is how my body delivers a baby, and if something else comes up, I don't know how I'm gonna handle it. My first literally went to a T as my birth plan. So this second time around, near the end, I started to get actually really nervous and scared about the unknown of birth, and then thinking like, oh, the first time around was just this like unicorn birth, and like that's not what this is gonna be. I don't know how to explain it. I got really, really scared, and it was just unexpected. And now looking back, you know, I had a second positive birth. I think everyone just likes to scare you and think like, well, it might not be like that. You don't have any control. It could be this, could be that. For me, it really is ignorance is bliss. Like, I don't need to know every possible scenario that could happen with birth, and just try to stay positive and know that like it's really out of my hands. I can prepare and do as much as I can, but it will be what it will be. I think your body just knows when it's time, and I can't explain it, but there was just like this overwhelming feeling of I am ready. This is it. And I was like at peace with giving birth again. Postpartum and recovery, one of the things that really caught me by surprise was cramping you get with breastfeeding. Not your first, but your second baby. For some reason, they say it gets worse with each baby. I thought it was gonna be fine. I thought like, how bad can these cramps get? She leaves the room. I kid you not, like 5 minutes later, I'm curled up in a ball on the bed, basically crying because it was so painful. Matt buzzes in the nurse. She comes in with a heating pad and some painkillers, and I'm just like, whoop, in a ball waiting for the pain to subside. And luckily this only lasted a couple of days, but wow, it caught me by surprise. Those cramps that are basically your uterus contracting in, which apparently happen quicker, I think, or stronger when you're breastfeeding. No joke. But in terms of recovery as a whole, I actually feel like it's been easier than my first time. I don't know if it's just because like my body is like, we got this, we've done this before, we know what we're doing. But a lot of things have just been like quicker for me to feel more like myself again. So obviously like I took the appropriate time to heal and rest and recover, but I just felt like I was able to get back into the swing of things earlier and faster than I did with my first. Probably it was just more of a shock to my body the first time. Also curious, did you feel like that happened? Some things have taken longer, like just like my stomach. I still feel like if I relax it, I can easily look 3 months pregnant, maybe more. But in terms of just like my strength and how I feel like that has been better this time around. You know what no one really talks about is how disconnected you might feel from the rest of the family. And for some, this might be a nice thing. And like in some ways it was, because I got some one-on-one time with Oakley as a newborn. But in other times, like with my, you know, just mental health and postpartum recovery, it was hard. Like I felt like I could always hear, you know, Matt playing with Sage and they're having so much fun. And I'm like in a quiet, dark room alone with baby, breastfeeding, doing like putting him to bed, all those things that like very special moments. And I'm so grateful that I was able to have that one-on-one time with Oakley, and I still do. But I used to have those times with Matt too. Like it was something we shared as a family. And, you know, and like, yes, Sage would be in the room sometimes, but then Oakley would get distracted or she'd wake him up. So like I would have to just kind of disconnect myself away from the rest of the family sometimes. And that felt very lonesome. And as someone who really thrives and loves being around people, I think that kind of took a toll on my mental health a bit, being by myself all the time. Like, pause what you're doing, pause this, well, don't pause the video, keep watching. I want to quickly tell you guys about my 2 cookbooks I have for kids. I have the baby HealthNut cookbook and the toddler HealthNut cookbook. These are 2 digital cookbooks I created for your kids to help create adventurous eaters who are not picky and only eating beige, bland foods. Thousands of parents all over the world have purchased a copy. We have so many glowing 5-star reviews. Both of these cookbooks have over 30 delicious homemade recipes to create adventurous eaters and not fall into the trap of having picky eaters. Most kids are going to be picky at some point in their life, but there is so much that you can do to help support them and help them to truly love food food and enjoy trying new things. After my daughter turned 1, she got so picky with so many foods, but I stayed consistent, and now she's eating things like mushrooms and eggs and trying all sorts of new foods. And I actually get comments from other parents on how accepting she is of trying new foods, which honestly is like the best compliment ever. So if you want your kid to be an adventurous eater, grab one of my cookbooks. You can also get a bundle with both and save 15%. I will have the links down below. One thing that I feel like no one prepares you for is how, like, people will say like your first will feel so big when your second one comes, but I thought that's just because, you know, you got this little baby and then your other one just looks bigger in comparison. But they look bigger because you feel like you missed out on a chunk of their life. Like the last year you've spent, you know, for me, I was like nauseous on the couch. I was focused more internally what's happening mentally and physically with my body, and then preparing for a second baby. You know, I was still working and thinking about birth and my postpartum recovery. Your focus is on this baby and what's happening to your body, and yet all along your first is growing up. And oh, it's gonna make, every time I think about this, it makes me sad. Okay. After a few weeks of having Oakley, and when I was starting to feel like myself a little bit more, I remember just looking at Sage and realizing like, oh my gosh, like she's just grown up under my eyes, and I missed it. I missed out. And sorry, Chloe, it makes me upset. It does. I felt like she went from like a toddler to a little girl while I was pregnant and growing Oakley. Something that I've thought a lot about is like, you make a sacrifice when you choose to bring another child into the world, is that you are sacrificing time with your first. And yes, at the end of the day, this time will feel like a blink of an eye, and then they're gonna have this lifelong best friend to have. You know, you're giving them a sibling, like one of the best gifts in life. But in that moment, it feels like that time was stolen away from you in order to grow that second child. So that, I think, was like one of the hardest things. And like even now that Oakley is older, I feel like I'm kind of reconnecting with Sage again. Like I'm craving one-on-one time with her, solo mommy-daughter dates and stuff. But a year in a child's life, especially like under 5, so much happens. It's something I think about a lot. And like I think about if I was to have another one, like I would be sacrificing time from both my kids. It's a constant ache in my heart and something I've just kind of come to terms with. And knowing that there's so much more time I have with my kids, and like it's not lost forever or anything, but it was a really hard thing to deal with and go through. And if you also experience that, I would love to know your thoughts on it. Honestly, there's some days where I just find myself like cuddling her longer, holding her more, and just like calling her like my cute little baby, even though she tells me, "Mommy, I'm not cute. I'm big. I'm big now, Mommy." So it just makes me even more emotional. Basically, babies just make you cry all the time. Does he need milk? This one's tired. You're tired? Yeah. How different babies truly are. I thought I knew what to expect, especially during the newborn stage with Oakley, because of what I experienced with Sage. And when I tell you they're like complete opposites, like they look similar as babies, but that's pretty much it. They are so different. Oakley is way chiller, calmer. He was such a good newborn sleeper. Yeah. Sage hated the car seat, stroller naps, everything. This guy, I take him to the mall all the time. He is like the best shopping buddy. I feel like because I had Sage in 2020 and everything was closed and she hated leaving the house, it's been such a different experience this time around with Oakley, because I can take him out for the entire day and he just goes with the flow. I don't know if that's like a second child thing. Maybe it is. We are on Sage's schedule and like he's just kind of has to like tag along. And so maybe he's just learned to kind of nap where he needs to. But yeah, oh, you know you're on camera. You know you're on camera. Yeah, you're just quieter and calmer. High five. High five. Clap. Let's show all your tricks. Clap. Okay, Oakley's gonna go to bed. Say bye. Bye. This is your sign to have a second baby. Oh, okay, you gotta go to bed. It's 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock, mister. We are back. Oakley is down for his nap. The bond between siblings. Like, I knew eventually Sage is gonna love her little brother, but I was really surprised by how much she has taken to being a big sister. Like, Sage was born to be a big sister. Like, she took that role and she ran with it. From the moment that she saw him and held him, it like melted my heart. I filmed it. If you have not watched that video, I'll link it here. Sage is a very strong-willed, determined little girl, so I really didn't know how she was gonna act like another little person in the house. And there has been, I don't know if it's the 3-year age gap. In some ways I do think it is that, because she's not a baby, so she's not like, Oakley's not taking away the baby status from her. And I did a whole TikTok on why I think the 3-year age gap is the best one. Obviously you can't always plan it, but I do love this age gap. And I feel like because of it, Sage has really adapted very well to being a sibling and, you know, not the only child anymore. But the joy that comes from seeing your two babies interact together, like they can't have a conversation. Like, Oakley doesn't talk yet, but when she does something and he reacts to it or he's trying to mimic her, I know they will eventually fight and probably hate each other at one point, but like, it's so stinking cute to see the sibling love at a young age. And being one of 4 myself, I think the relationship between your siblings is something that is so precious, and I'm just grateful that Sage is going to be able to experience that as well. Back to the mom guilt. There is a different level of mom guilt you feel when you kind of have to prioritize the needs of your first because they're little and they just need you more. And your second one either has to wait or just doesn't get as much attention. Now, because there are 2 kids and 2 parents, we're able to divide and conquer. But there are some times where, you know, one of us is alone with the 2 of them. Usually that's me because Oakley is breastfed and I just feel guilty. Sage will ask for something and I'm maybe breastfeeding Oakley, or, you know, he's needing me for whatever reason, and I'm very careful with my words, and I don't what it's called blame the baby, like, oh no I can't because Oakley needs this, no I can't, Oakley's tired, he's got to go to bed. So that's a whole other thing that I do in terms of like preventing jealousy and resenting of the younger sibling. But it definitely like, it eats me to the core that, you know, there's sometimes that I want to be there for her more. Like after we're done dinner, like Oakley goes to bed earlier, so I go upstairs and I do his whole bedtime routine, yet she is like home and playing with daddy, and I'm missing out on those like precious moments that she's home from daycare because I'm with my younger one. I know it's a phase, like Oakley's already getting into a better routine, he's going down earlier, and because he's going down earlier for bedtime, I'm able to then pivot back to Sage and do some bedtime with her. But it's a very weird feeling of having your kid need you, but then also having another kid need you more at this stage. Like obviously Sage needs us in different ways, and you know, I try to be there for her as much as I can, but it breaks my heart when I know she's asking for mommy and I'm with Oakley and Matt is like, mommy is busy right now, I'm here for you. And when I was pregnant, that's when I ended my breastfeeding journey with Sage, and I was also just really sick, so she started gravitating more towards dad, and she's his #1 fan right now, and that also made me upset because I was like, she was a mommy's girl, and I feel like she was eventually going to be a daddy's girl, and I love that they have that relationship together, but it did like break my heart a little bit. But now all of a sudden she's asking for mom more, and I'm like, I'm coming. Like it all levels out, but there are definitely a lot of times where I feel the mom guilt. How much easier it was going from 1 to 2 versus 0 to 1. I also did a full TikTok talking about this, I'll link down below, but I personally feel like it was easier going from 1 to 2 versus, you know, not being a parent to becoming a parent. That life altering experience will change your life forever, and I think nothing will replicate that. And yes, although 2 kids is technically more work, you're already doing a lot of the things, your routine still revolves around kids. The idea of, you know, taking care of somebody else outside of yourself is already instilled into your life. So that being said, I haven't really experienced being home with both kids for like a long period of time. I'm grateful that both Matt and I work from home, and so we've been really able to divide and share responsibilities. So if you are like by yourself with 2 kids, like that to me would definitely be harder than with 1. And there are little tricks you learn along the way, like pairing up their naps, staggering bedtimes so you can do one and then the other. Like we're learning as we go, but overall I do think 1 to 2 easier than 0 to 1. Let me know your thoughts down below. I do feel like the more kids you have, the more the relationship with your partner changes. And although this might be a temporary thing, it does change in the moment. There were many times where I felt like Matt and I were just two ships passing in the night because we're both like on a kid, getting them down for bed, and just honestly in survival mode. And normally when the kids are down, that would be the time where you like chill and hang out. And like honestly, that was the time that we were like peace out. Like we would go like different ends of the house to have our own me time and just recharge and recoup from the day. And I feel like not a lot of people talk about that, and you feel like guilty in the moment. Like, am I being a bad partner because I am just craving like alone time and I like don't want anybody else talking to me? But then you realize like all day long you are responding to everyone else's needs, and then at the end of the day you were like, I just need to recharge and be alone. And this went on for quite a few weeks where like, you know, we would talk about it like, oh, are we like, is this bad? Like we're just like hanging out by ourselves at night. But then we realized like that was just what we were craving in the moment. And you realize everything is just a phase. Like it takes more work to connect and make time for each other as a couple, definitely with 2 kids. But if you are like knee deep in newborn life with a toddler as well, and you're feeling guilty because you are not like having movie night on the couch with popcorn with your hubby, don't feel bad. It's normal. It doesn't mean you don't love each other anymore, but it's just, it is what it is. Like you are in survival mode all day long. You've been in like an automatic state. And honestly, I was just really tired. Like I was waking up throughout the night all the time with Oakley, and then Matt was like dealing with Sage. Like we were both physically and mentally exhausted. And now that both kids are sleeping really, really good throughout the night, I do not want to jinx it, we have more time for us, and we've been doing movie nights and stuff, and eventually we will be incorporating date night again. But looking back, I realized it was just a phase. But like you just, I don't know, it's just like guilt, the society guilt, like, oh, we should be all lovey-dovey all the time, and like that's just not the reality of it sometimes with little kids. Not to mention, there was many nights where Matt was sleeping in the guest room. He was sick a couple times. We had Oakley over like the winter season. So if he was sick, he was sleeping in the guest room. There was also a couple nights where Sage was sick and she needed us throughout the night. So Matt would take her into the guest room with him. I still think to this day, she thinks this is mommy's bed and that is daddy's bed. But the reality is on nights that Oakley was waking up a lot, which he was sleeping in our room in the bassinet, Matt was sleeping in the guest room because I need him fully rested during the day to take care of our 3-year-olds, get her ready for daycare, and also take Oakley if I needed time to rest and just heal and recover. Like we can't have 2 tired parents during the day. If you are on the fence about having a second child, honestly, I cannot recommend it enough. I remember being pregnant with Sage and thinking like, this is the only baby I'm having. I'm not doing this again. I was feeling a lot of stress and anxiety about pregnancy and becoming a mom and like what that was gonna look like. And now I just can't imagine my life not being a mom. I love it. I've always wanted to be a mom. I've always wanted to have 2. I just didn't know if I was mentally and physically strong enough. And now looking back, it was all worth it in the end. However sick I was with my second pregnancy, like when you look back, it just seems like you would do that all over again without even thinking about it. Especially as you get older, I know it can be really scary, the idea of thinking of having kids and growing your family and then thinking of having a second. That's like the first question people ask you after you have your first is like, when are you having the second? And now people are like, when are you having your third? I just want to put it out there for you guys. Like I am so happy we have 2. I do not feel like it was an overwhelming or bad decision. I love having 2 babies. I get to see them connect with each other. It has just enriched our family and our life even more. And we are just an even number now. I feel like 4 is a good rounded number and we can still go do a lot of things together. We are not outnumbered. Oakley was meant to be in our lives, and when I look at him, I just can't imagine him not ever being here. And I just love being a mom of 2. Like even when I'm out in public and stuff and I'm with 1 kid, people are like, oh, is that your, like, do you just have 1? I feel like such a proud mom to be like, oh no, I have another one. She's in daycare right now. Like I have 2 little babies that my body created and I birthed into the world. Like I just think that is such a cool thing. And a part of me is like, I want 100 babies. And then a part of me is like, 2 is good. So I'm really on the fence. I do not know. If you're coming here to ask if I'm having a third, I'm not answering that. But thank you so much for watching. If you are currently family planning or growing your family, I wish you so much love and sending lots of fertility vibes your way. And I hope this video was helpful. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe Thumbs up this video, it really helps support my channel. I'm almost at 1 million. What the heck? When I started 10 years ago, never in a million years, no pun intended, would have thought that I would still be doing YouTube and my channel would get to this crazy number. So thank you for all the support, and I love sharing my mommy journeyhood with you, and I will stop talking now. Okay, see you in the next video. Have a fabulous day. Bye guys.